plant goes this way to balance it off. Now I'm going to take it and I'm just going to push this in. Don't be afraid to push. You got to use your strength here. Use your fingers. Just go here and push this stuff in. Just about as hard as you can. And once you get it in there, as you go further, you'll feel that there are spots that are hollow. So you take a little more, put it in here, just stuff it in. And there's a spot over here that was similar to that. Now that's getting pretty tight. I can feel that's pretty tight in there. And by pushing it down, I also know that if I were to go and push this whole thing out now, if I can even do that, it's so tight in there. Usually this whole thing just comes out as one piece. Probably shouldn't be doing this yet, but we'll give it a try. Well, we're going to leave it in there. This is not really a good shaped pot for doing that. If you use just a round, flat terracotta pot, it's very simple. They can come out nicely. But this is in pretty good, okay? So we get this all down in there. And now we're ready to trim the tree. Now when you work with junipers, there's a very nice trick. And we'll get to that. The first thing is you want to start cutting off the stuff that you don't want. And that's the stuff down low that doesn't let you see the branches. My basic idea is that we have this branch here, which is a main branch coming out here, which looks very nice. And I want to have a balancing branch maybe that comes the other direction. I'm not sure which one. If I want to have this one, yeah, that looks pretty interesting. So I'm going to just snip off some of these. And don't be afraid to cut stuff off, because if you make a mistake, it grows back. That's the nice thing here. And especially if you're just starting out and practicing, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Now, see some other stuff here, because I want this here to go two different ways. The other trick with these is to cut out all the stuff that's growing downwards. And when you do that, and you only leave the foliage that's growing upwards, it gives it a look as if it's being swept upwards. What I'll do is I'll cut off all these downward hanging branches. And now we're starting to get that upward look. Now here, there's just a little too much stuff in here, and you really can't see it too well. So I'm going to clear it out a little bit. Just clean this off. You'll notice that I have this on a Lazy Susan, which makes it very nice and easy to work with. You can turn it around and see what's going on. I've got to take a look here, and I think this stuff here has to go in the back. Now it's already starting to take shape, isn't it? It's starting to look a little more oriental. Okay, so now I'm going to start to cut off some more of this bottom stuff to give it that upward flow. And you'll see how the shape, now some of it comes nicely. Some of these are a little long, so I'm going to just shorten them up a little bit. And take a look at it. It's important to look at these things as you're going on here and seeing what you want to do with it. And you shouldn't rush. You really should not rush like this, like I am. You should take your time and figure things out. Now as I look at this, I see this one point here sticking up. It's just a little too high. If I cut it off, now it kind of looks nice. This one here is a little bit high too. So I'll cut a little bit of this off, and I get this kind of flat out look here. And this here is just a little bit long, so I'm going to find this one here and cut it off. And this one here is kind of sticking out a little bit, so we'll just get rid of that. And now we have a fairly nicely shaped little tree. And because of the trimming I'm doing, this plant will start to grow back very quickly, because plants like to be pruned. In nature, insects come, cut off their leaves, the wind breaks things, and that's how plants survive, by having this great ability to come back from the damage of nature. Now here we've got this little tree. It's got got some character to it now. And we're kind of almost done. I just want to get this one little thing over here off, I think. We're going to just wait, I think, to see how this thing grows out. But in the meantime, we get another couple little things over here cut off. We have a nice little tree, and if we want to, we can just bend this a little bit. You don't have to use wire. I hardly ever use wire on my trees. You don't have to tie them up to make them look good. You just come out every day and bend it a little bit, and eventually it'll assume that shape, and it'll grow naturally and assume a shape that it takes in nature, which makes them quite beautiful. Okay, so to me that looks like a fairly interesting little shape, considering what we had in the beginning. And now I'm going to show you the quick and simple and nice finishing touches for these. What I do is I use moss. This is moss that a friend of mine had in their front yard, and they were going to plant some stuff, so they called me over, and I go over with a trowel, and I scrape the moss off and put it in these trays. And one of the tricks is if you have too much moss in the tray and you have to put more on, put the green stuff on top of the green stuff. Okay, and when you get back, you can separate it. Now, we live in Florida, which used to be an ocean, and there's a lot of sand here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece here, and here's how I do this. I hold it in one hand. I take the hose and I use a fine spray, and I just start washing away the sand gently. You don't have to get it all, but you want to get a decent amount. The other thing is because when you water these, the sand will slowly percolate through the sphagnum moss and out the bottom. Okay, now that's ready, and I flip it over. I take this and I lay it on here, and I start squeezing it down. Now, if you can see, the water from the sphagnum moss is actually coming up through. And it's nice if you make little hills and stuff in here. You don't want it just flat, okay? Because this gives it some character. Now I need another piece, so I'll go and get another piece of moss. Now we'll clean this off. Okay, that looks like it's about ready. And now we're going to work here on this side. And you can just go to the edge and then you can pull it off. Make it fit. Now I had been thinking about maybe putting a rock in here or something also with this, because we could have, that might be interesting. Just as a counterbalance to this thing, and basically you just have to make a spot for it. I'll go pushing this out, sticking this in, pushing this back down. Now we have an interesting looking little plant here so far. Here's another piece of the moss, so I'm putting it over here on this side. Kind of fill it up. And you want to push it down good. You want to leave the root exposed, the stem of the tree, the trunk. And you want to push it down good so that water actually comes up through it a little. That'll give it a good start. Then, if you go and give it a fine watering, it'll drive away a lot of the sand and help make this thing look pretty decent. You can go and clean the pot off. Then I like to trim up any extra little things that are coming out, like this little piece of straw here. There's one back here and a little piece here. And here we have a nice little bonsai that'll do very well in northern climates and in southern.